When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Dr. Raj.
Dr. Raj. Dr. Raj Dasgupta.
The most interesting pulmonologist in the world.
Welcome to the Dr. Raj Podcast, a show all about empowering knowledge, addressing difficult topics, raising awareness, and being positive. Dr. Raj is a quadruple board-certified physician, associate professor of clinical medicine, and the associate program director of internal medicine residency. He was a co-host on the TNT series Chasing the Cure with Ann Curry, as well as a regular on the TV show The Doctors. And now, here's our show.
Hi, and welcome to the Dr. Raj Podcast. I am your guest host, Becca Spahr. In real life, I'm a speaker and likability coach who helps people cultivate their natural likability so that they can make more meaningful connections in their personal and professional lives. But today, I'm excited to be a part of the Dr. Raj Podcast family. Today's guest is on a mission to make leadership a little easier and a whole lot more human. Shaina Lane, the founder of Premier Professional Coaching, is an executive leadership and career coach who works with bold, busy professionals, especially in healthcare, to help them lead with courage and curiosity. She's the author of the refreshingly real book, Leadership is Easy, Said No One Ever, and a sought-after speaker whose keynote speech, Leadership is a People Sport and It's Game Day, Baby, is energizing leaders across the country. So if you've ever been a leader, thought about being a leader, questioned why anyone in their right mind would choose to be a leader, or if you're just game for a little bit of honest, practical wisdom about leadership, you are in for a treat. Shaina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca.
I'm excited for you to be here. And I have to say, I have to ask you about the book. First of all, the title of your book, Leadership is Easy, Said No One Ever, is like such a cheeky and funny name. And it really makes me think, right? So I'm interested to hear your take. What inspired that name?
You know, I wish I could tell you something super profound, but at the end of the day, number one, as soon as you think you're being creative, you're not, because I would come up with a title for the book and then I'd go out and Google it and somebody's already done it, right? But ultimately what I wanted was a title that would stand out on bookshelves, that would make people look twice. And I thought, okay, I worked with a marketing expert. We did some of the SEO stuff to see what are people searching in terms of leadership, and really couldn't find anything unique or cheeky, as you put it. So I was like, what about leadership is easy, psych or not, or like that. And it kind of solidified in my mind, and I nailed it about a month after I released the book. I was at a conference and one of the attendees came up to me and said, "Hey, I was reading your book at my kid's track meet and I was in the bleachers, and one of the other parents looked over and saw the book and was like, well, that's a lie." And he was like, I showed him I had to point out the said no one ever. And he was like, and he laughed. He's like, "Oh yeah, okay, that's right." They nailed it. So
nailed it. I love that. So in your book, what I guess we're talking about a lot of the misconceptions about leadership. It's easy. No, clearly it isn't. So what are some of the things in the book that you talk about, the myths that you wanted to bust?
Yeah, well, I think the first one is the title, and that it's easy. So many times leaders kind of put up this wall and this strong exterior, and I can't let my team see me sweat, and I've got to have it under control, and I've got to have all the right answers. And so when people think about going into leadership, they're like, oh, well, it's easy, right? Because I never see my leaders sweat, and they've always got it all together. And so I just get the title, and I get the salary, and I get the corner office, and then people listen to me, and they do what I want them to do. And then you get into leadership and you realize that's the biggest myth out there.
Yeah, there's a reason you're getting paid the big bucks, and it's because it's not easy.
It's not easy. Yeah, so that's really the biggest myth that we bust is right there in the title is leadership's not easy. It is hard, but it can be easier if you master some of those leadership skills.
Which I'm sure you would love to tell me about right now. What are what are some of what are those really important ones that you've are just non-negotiables? You have to be able to do this if you're going to be an effective leader.
Yeah, I think the most important one is building connection with your team. So often people will get into that leadership role and it's just about the X's and O's and getting the work done. And they forget to connect with the people. And if you don't connect with them, you don't build trust. And trust is your foundation. It's just like the foundation of your house. You can't build a house on top of a crappy foundation. It will crumble. So to be able to build trust with your team, you've got to be able to connect with them. It also helps you to understand what drives them, what motivates them. How can I delegate and stretch them in a meaningful way? And delegation is, one of the biggest pain points because leaders tend to take on everything and oftentimes we're short staffed. And so I'm in the field with my team and I'm seeing patients and I'm trying to do my leadership stuff and they just get overwhelmed and burn out. And so they've got to be able to let go, but without knowing and understanding your team on a more than that surface level, it's going to be really hard to do that.
Absolutely. So connection and trust are that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think I can kind of imagine if you're kind of in your office-y setting where everybody has their desk, maybe as a leader, how does that connection look? Well, it looks like walking around and talking to your people. But when you're in an industry like healthcare, which is often very fast-paced, even emergency level stuff going on a daily basis, what are some ways that the leaders in the healthcare world can actually find the time to connect with their team?
Yeah, you have to prioritize it. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm actually working on a empowered leader workshop right now with a medical group out in Colorado, and we're doing time management. And some of the best practices that I've learned and carried with me in my career is plan 70 to 75% of your day or your week, right? The stuff that you need to do, try to keep your schedule 70% full. So it allows 30% of the time for some of those crises and things that come up that you just can't plan for. But if you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week already, and then the unplanned stuff comes in on top of that, it's just pushing you into an unreasonable workload. So if you can try to delegate, eliminate, automate some of the things that you're doing so that you've got about 30 hours a week of work that you need to do, you've got some buffer time in there. And I think one of the biggest tools that leaders have at their disposal that they don't recognize are meaningful one-to-ones with their employees, because that is planned time. And it's also that time to connect. Because like you said, a lot of times you can walk out in the office setting and talk to people at their desk, or even clinical setting, go out and check on your clinical team. How you doing? What do you need? And oftentimes those conversations are very transactional. It's about the day-to-day work. It's not sitting down and saying, Becca, how are you today? What's going on in your world? What are you loving about your work? What's really frustrating you lately? Where do you want to go in your career? What do you want to do? What's your next step? And so it's having those kind of connection opportunities that those one-to-ones allow, that oftentimes leaders will see as oh gosh, I just don't have time. Where do I fit in the one-to-ones? But sometimes making that investment on the front end can alleviate some time down the road. So if you look at it like an investment, just like if I was to buy a house, that down payment is painful up front, right? Shelling out that down payment is kind of hard to do, but on the back end, you build equity and you've got an investment and it's yours. And so there's something to be said for thinking about those connection points as investments.
I like that you had an equation there where you can think about the percentage of your time or the number of hours you have in the week, and being mindful as a leader to think ahead to how much time you have. And for some people, myself included, with exercise, I have to put that on my schedule or it is not going to happen. So maybe that's kind of a way to think of it for leaders. I have to put on my schedule, I'm going to swing by the nurse's station for 30 minutes on Monday or whatever it is, to be able to build those foundational connections. And you said a couple other things there with the one-on-ones that jumped out on me, which was asking, what can I do or what do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't remember the exact words you said, but basically like, how are we going to get you into a space where you can be developed and like grow in whatever you're trying to grow in? So for those, walk me through those a little bit. Tell me about why it's important to say, what can I do for you?
Yeah. And that's a catch-22 because a lot of times you'll say like, what can I do for you? Well, I'm really busy and I've got this and I've got that. And that will pull leaders into a very task-minded mindset. And so instead of removing the barrier for the employee, they end up jumping in and doing the work for them.
Okay.
And it's one of the things that when I hear this from a leader, I tend to cringe and maybe like twitch a little bit when they say like, I wouldn't ask my team to do anything that I wouldn't do, because it sounds humble, it sounds noble, it sounds like servant leadership, but sometimes they're using that as an excuse to not lead. It's much more comfortable for me to jump back into the clinic and see patients because I know how to do it like the back of my hand, rather than to figure out why we're short-staffed and to create a strategy to get us out of being short-staffed. So that what can I do for you is really a double-edged sword. It almost is, what do you need to be better or to be more efficient or to get through this hurdle? Because it may not be something that you necessarily can jump in and take over the work. I had a leader tell me the other day, when so-and-so is behind on filing, like I jump in and I help her with her filing so that she can get on to her next task. And I was like, oh, that sounds like how the next time she's behind, how is she going to know how to get herself out of that? Or is she just going to keep coming to you and say, I need help with my filing?
Right.
As a strategic leader in the department, you shouldn't be spending your time filing. And I get that there's a time and a place to jump in, but if you're using that as an excuse to not do the strategic work that your leadership role requires, that can create a problem.
Definitely. So it's kind of wording here, right? Instead of saying, what can I do what can I do to help, which kind of implies what tasks can I take on? You say, what do you need from me? Which can be more of like a little more conceptual, like what do you need to get to where you need to go?
Yeah. Or even what are the barriers that you're running into?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And then they might tell you the barriers. And then that's your opportunity. Again, coaching is another wicked powerful tool for leaders. But okay, what do you need to get through those barriers? What would happen if you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And that's not really a great, powerful coaching question, but you can kind of let them think their way through it. Or how could you prioritize your work differently? If maybe time is a barrier or something. So helping them learn how to problem solve through those issues themselves, rather than just jumping in and taking something off their plate.
Yeah.
Because then they don't learn how to navigate that. And then they get in a constant cycle of overworked and overwhelmed.
And so we're talking about teaching a man to fish, really, right? Like you could, I can do your filing. I can hook the bait for you, or I can help you learn how to do it yourself and to help you to determine the barriers that need to get removed and all of that. So absolutely love that. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your keynote speech that you have been getting a lot of momentum on lately, traveling to give to various groups. And that one you use a different metaphor, a sports metaphor, which I think is really creative. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I started my career in athletic training, in sports medicine. So I was an athletic trainer. And for those of you that are thinking, oh, you're a personal trainer and you taught people how to lift weights, athletic training is a little bit different. We are the folks that are out on the football fields and the basketball courts that when somebody gets injured, we run out and we evaluate and assess, treat, rehab, all the things. But athletic training incorporates a lot of nutrition, there's mental health, there's dentistry, and all the things that have an emergency care. So I started my career there, spent a lot of time in the sports world, transitioned from working in a college setting into working with the sports medicine surgeons down at a healthcare center in Atlanta. And so the first part of my career really was around sports and athletics. I play sports myself. And so I tell one of the stories in my keynote of I'm a really slow runner. And so when you spend a lot of time pounding the pavement, you're alone with your thoughts. So I think a lot about how leadership parallels to sports and what we can learn from sports and apply to leadership. And so that's where that keynote came about. And I have stories from coaches that I've worked with, from leaders that I've worked with, from sports that I've attempted to do well. But
I tried.
I tried. Yeah, I worked really, really hard to be mediocre. It was great.
I also am a member of the Slow Runners Club, so I can understand that. But there's a lot there, like a lot of connection between sports and coaching and leadership. And actually, in my coaching practice, one of the things when I'm kind of initially talking to a client, I often use the analogy of like, if you think about a coach like an athletic coach, that's somebody who is training and teaching you to be the best athlete you can be. And so in a form of like leadership coaching or life coaching, or in my case, like ability coaching, it's kind of it's kind of the same concept. We're just trying to teach and train so you can be the best that you can be. So yeah, and then of course, like with leadership, I mean, coaches are leaders, and that's probably one of the first types of like leaders that a lot of people come into contact with as even as kids playing sports. So your keynote, having that sports metaphor throughout, is like very accessible. Can you share some of the, maybe like one of the stories that from your speech that you think people get the most out of?
Yes and no. Is that like giving away the farm?
No, don't. I don't want you to give it away. Can you make it like a teaser maybe?
Yeah. So one of the things, I think one of the messages, and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to hit on it from a different angle, that leadership is a lot like sports coaching, from the aspect that like you're teaching and you're training. But if you think about a sports coach, it's inspiring followership. So you want your athletes to buy into your game plan and your strategy. Just like if you're leading in a healthcare organization, you want your people to buy in and to follow you. And kind of like what we were talking about earlier, is that coach that's coaching that football team, let's say, he probably played football and was good at it. But in his role as a coach, he can't get on the field and play for the athletes. As a leader, should you be in the field doing the work that your team is doing? Or should you be figuring out how to get the best out of them, how to elevate their performance without getting stuck in the weeds with them? So how do you shift your mindset to be comfortable on the sidelines, not in the trenches with the team? Because I think you miss a big part of the field of vision. You think about even the coaches up in the press box during the games, right? They can see the entire field. If you're on the field in the fray with the players, you can't take that step back and think about, okay, how are we in the situation that we're in? Like, how did we get here? How do we get out of it? You're kind of blinded by everything that's going on in the weeds. So the goal is not to be in the weeds with your team, but to be the one that leads them out of the weeds. I think that's one of the most important things that a leader can do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's two completely different roles, because there's like the athletes or the employees, and then the leader. You've got two different perspectives, but you have to work together to make it, to win the game or meet whatever mission there is professionally. Yeah, good. It's a really good analogy. I like that one.
Yeah, and I think about one of the stories that I told in my last keynote was, if any of you listeners out there are a Detroit Lions fan, you understand disappointment because they've been terrible my entire life. I grew up in Michigan, but was raised a Cowboys fan. So we had our glory days back in the 90s. But the Lions got a new coach 4 years ago. So Dan Campbell came in. The Lions, I think, were like 3-13, chronically terrible. And within 4 years, he had them in the playoffs twice. And so, number one, he's not on the field with the team. He is leading the team. And that shows the difference that a good leader can make, right? Like, you can come into a chronically terrible team, and if you're a strong leader, you can turn that around. But the post-game interview this year, when they got beat out of the playoffs, Dan Campbell showed a lot of really strong emotion. He broke down in tears, which you don't often see from an NFL coach, right? And I kind of followed that story, and I never heard one person say, oh gosh, Dan Campbell, what a wuss, like, what a weenie, get rid of him, he's soft. I heard a lot of people say, Dan Campbell is my coach. I wouldn't trade him for the world, right? Because they knew he was emotionally invested with his team. It was just as important to him as it was to them, but he didn't have to be on the field playing with them. He could appreciate it, and he could, as a coach, when you win, there's still a jug of Gatorade that's going to get dumped on your head. Like you're still part of the celebration, even though you aren't out on the field playing. So I think sometimes leaders can think like, well, gosh, if I'm not working my butt off with my team, am I really a part of it, or am I really contributing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good story. I didn't know any of that. So interesting. But what it makes me think about is the importance of that like authenticity as a leader, where like it's okay to make mistakes. You're a human being, but like pick yourself up. So can you talk a little bit about the like that importance of like presenting yourself as authentic and approachable as a leader and what that will do for teams?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, people don't want to work for a robot, right? They want to work for somebody who's human, and humans make mistakes. I saw when I was preparing for my last keynote, there was a study, and I forget where it came from. And I always am a little bit cautious about mentioning research to people who work in healthcare because I don't think it was peer reviewed.
Oh.
A study out there that said leaders who show strong emotions with their team earn 42% more trust from their team. So they're more likely to earn trust if you show emotions with your team. And so I think there's a time and a place. You don't want to be crying on your team's shoulders every day, but for them to know that you're human. There was something else. Gallup did a study. Gallup is a research organization. They study organizational dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
After COVID, they found that leaders, you'll like this as a likability coach, leaders were more likable after COVID because everybody went home to work. You could now see in their house. You saw spouses walking by, pets walking by, kids tugging on their shoulders saying, hey, help me with my homework. I want a snack.
Mm-hmm.
And so they became more human to their teams because they got that glimpse into their life. You could see like trophies or certificates or degrees on the wall, and just you got a glimpse into their home and who they were. And they found that leaders were more likable because of that.
I love that. And that is one thing that I've noticed. And sometimes I'll tell people like, well, maybe you should like put a picture of like your family or your cat on your desk. And then like, it's a conversation starter. It makes you a little more real.
It's so true. And it's funny, you say that and I've got this like blank blue wall behind me. With Shaina, but it's so funny because some of the different like Zoom or Teams or Meetup or Google Meets, whatever, they show a different angle. But I've got up above me all of my leadership sayings. So sometimes those when I'm on Zoom calls. But yeah, so
that's smart.
That makes me a little bit more likable.
Backdrop is everything, right? But at a minimum, you can always either like blur it out. Or my favorite that I've actually seen in a professional meeting is the one where it looks like you're at the beach. Like, come on, but maybe too much.
I'm over here going like, oh, when is summer again?
Yeah, exactly. So I love hitting on that like authenticity part. And I know one of the other things that comes up a few times in your book is the concept of courage and curiosity in leadership, which I think are maybe courage is something people think about sometimes, but definitely curiosity. I don't think that's something that comes to people's minds as like a trait when you think of a leader. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So Gallup, again, had done a study, and what they found was that only 1 out of 10 people have the natural talent to lead. Only 1 out of 10 have the natural talent to lead, which means most of us are going to struggle.
Yeah. What do the rest of us do?
Right. I drive the struggle bus and you all hop on back, right? That's how we do it. But we have to work at it. And so I firmly believe that anybody can be a good leader if they want to. And that's another great story from the keynote that maybe you'll hear someday. But we don't know what we don't know. And so a lot of us are promoted into our leadership roles because we were excellent clinicians or patient service representatives or radiologists, whatever that is. We excel in our technical area of specialty. And because we're so good, somebody promotes us into leadership, but we've never had the training for it. And so we have to get curious about what we don't know. And to start to think about leadership or being a leader. I was doing a training the other week, and one of the team directors said, I tell my clinicians all the time that I went to school to be a nurse, not a team director. So, I feel very comfortable helping them and doing all the nursing things. And I was like, but you're a team director now. Now you're learning how to be a team director and a leader. And so it's getting curious about leadership and what we don't know. And then I also think that helps drive connection with your employees. If you don't assume, oh, I know Becca likes it when I give her praise in front of the team, or Becca likes it when I praise her like in person, or I just write a little note, or Becca loves free pizza. So every Monday we're going to do free pizza. And when I ask leaders, they're like, well, I think this, or, I kind of assume that they're this. And I was like, but do you know for sure? So it's getting curious and asking your team, what is most important to you? How do you like to be recognized? What do you need from your work to feel fulfilled? There's a lot of questions out there that, again, we get so busy in the day to day and we are so task focused of I just got to get the work done. We forget to stop and ask the questions to really know and understand. And that's where I think curiosity is something that you've got to channel if you are making it even well into that leadership journey. Because every time you take a new role as a leader, your team changes, your job changes. What don't you know yet about what you're going to have to do to succeed? Marshall Goldsmith said, what got you here won't get you there. So what will it take to be successful in this next role?
Right. And how are you going to do that without asking the questions? And asking questions, just to go back to the authenticity piece, can also make you seem approachable and human, like, hey, I don't know this. Can you help me understand this? You're asking for their expertise and showing that you want to learn, all important pieces of this big old leadership puzzle, which is what makes it not easy, despite what some people think.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think that's what creates a lot of the push and pull of leadership is when we don't know and we make assumptions, or we just try to get through the day doing all of the tasks. It feels like you're constantly pushing and pulling your team to get them to do the work that you need them to do. When if you just ask a few questions, you might learn a little bit about them, which, to your point, makes you more likable because it shows that you're interested in them and what's meaningful to them and what kind of work do they enjoy doing. It just makes leadership easier.
Yeah, definitely. So more tips from you in your book, I think, although I hope people were taking notes because you had a couple of really good, like, little one-liners in there in our episode just now. Like, listen again if you need to go back and write down little things like, just tell me what to say, Shaina. Just tell me what to do.
Yes. Well, and that was one of the things when I was writing the book. One of my assignments was to go out and look at all of the best-selling leadership books on the market and read the negative reviews for them and to find the trends and what people didn't like about those books. And so 3 things emerged. Number 1, it was the author could have said this in 100 less pages. Showing off emojis there too. Too filled with theory and fluff and outdated, not appropriate for modern day leadership. And so I wanted to write my book to be, number 1, straight to the point, not a lot of stuff. You're not going to get a lot of fluff. You're not going to get a lot of theory. You're not going to get a lot of research, but practical application. Tell me what I need to know. What do I need to do? And then there's reflection questions at the end of each chapter to help you kind of sit and think and reflect on what's going well for me in this area and where do I need some more work? That curiosity.
I love that. Yes, that is like, so it's almost like part educational, part anecdotal experiences, and then part workbook where you're actually interacting and like taking some time to think through it. Really brilliant. I wrote that one down. Read negative reviews of other books because that is a brilliant tip. And if only we could read negative reviews of other leaders.
We do, though. We have that in like employee engagement surveys and onboarding surveys and exit interviews. So we do get it.
So if you have access to that, take advantage of it so you can learn what not to do and how to do better.
Exactly. We learn just as much from the bad leaders in our life as we do from the good ones.
And that's what I've always told myself when you're in that situation where you have a really bad leader, you just kind of have to say, well, I'm learning what not to do at the very least.
Exactly.
Shaina, thank you so much for being with us here today. I've totally enjoyed this talk, as I always do. Listeners, if you want to hear more of Shaina's insights and experiences, you can pick up your very own copy of Shaina's book, Leadership is Easy, Said No One Ever, on Amazon. I will drop a link in the show notes so that you can find that easily. And I hope that all of you will come back soon for more incredible stories of wellness and wisdom here on the Dr. Raj podcast. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Dr. Raj podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app and leave a rating while you're there. This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. This has been a production of MedPrep2Go, and you can learn more at medprep2go.com.